Insurance for your drone, next-gen robots, and charging your cell phone in just 15 minutes. That's what I like. Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of this weird thing that I do once a week now. Let's go ahead and jump right into all the things that happened. First up, as a YouTuber, this is really interesting to me. YouTube has added in another enhancement you can do to your videos called blurring. Apparently for a while you've been able to actually find and blur out faces in your videos, but now you have the ability to just selectively say, blur out this part of a video, and you can treat it kind of like an annotation. I haven't tested this out on mobile or anything, but I did test it out just very quickly with one of my videos, and I was able to pick a section of the video, and it was able to actually track that section, sort of. It tried to. When things changed throughout the video, it just started tracking random other things. But whenever, for example, if I picked my face, when it would come back to it, it would track back on my face, which was very nice. I look forward to actually testing that out when I make a mistake and inevitably show something that is super top secret. Moving on to some drone news. DJI came out with an interesting new package called DJI Care. It's sort of like Apple Care for your drone. Starts off as low as $129. That's for 1 year for the DJI Phantom 3 standard. Goes up to as high as $699 for the Inspire 1. And it protects it from things like drops and squeezing and crashing, but it only covers the body of the drone itself and the gimbal and the camera. It doesn't cover any of the accessories, so obviously no props, no batteries, no remote, and it's not going to cover it if you lose it, if it flies away or something. It's not going to cover it if you drop it in the water or if somebody steals it, but still it is kind of nice to have that as an option, as an availability. AT&T and Intel announced at Mobile World Congress that they're working on LTE connected drones. This will mostly be helpful for something like Amazon with their delivery drones they're working on, because it's combining Intel's RealSense camera technology with AT&T's LTE so that it could be able to fly around in cities and sense objects around it and then react to them, and also be remotely controlled completely over LTE. Now obviously this is not something that's going to be coming to consumers or anything, especially with the new FAA rules, which we're not going to go into here. There's an entire video on my channel about that you can go over there and whine about if you really want to do that. Moving on. One of the very first things I purchased when I upgraded to an HD TV all of those years ago was Planet Earth. And it was announced this week that Planet Earth Season 2 is coming. They have filmed 6 new episodes in glorious 4K, and they did it using drones and remote photography. Again, that's why this is in the drone section of the video. So I absolutely cannot wait to see just how beautiful that kind of footage can be. The original Planet Earth, like I said, made an excellent example of HD TV. It was one of the first things I had to jump on as soon as I got my first HD TV, so I cannot wait to see Season 2. Switching gears, let's talk about cameras for just a minute, because you know I've got a camera addiction. Nikon unveiled a bunch of new cameras this week. They had a whole new series called the DL Premium Compact Series. It's 3 different cameras, and each one has a different lens and a different focal length and everything. So you've got one that's decently wide angle, you've got one that's sort of the medium all-around encompassing angle that most people will probably want, and then the one that's the super zoom. They're sort of set to be competitors to Sony's RX100 and RX10 and I think RX1, and they can do 4K video, and they're kind of medium priced. I'm saying in the range of about $700 to more. Sounds interesting. The whole idea though is it's not going to be as pocketable as the RX100 series. That's what's sort of pulling me away from it. If they would put a mic jack on it, I would probably snatch one up in a second. They also unveiled 3 new Coolpix cameras. They're relatively yawn-tastic, but one of them, the A900, can do 4K video. So it's got a flip-up screen on it, it's got 4K video. The crappy thing is it still has sort of a crappy Coolpix lens, so it's like 3.4 aperture to 5.8. If it were not for that aperture, it could probably make a really, really impressive vlogging camera for YouTube daily vloggers or just anybody in general. And I think it's actually wide enough that you could hold it just, you know, at arm's length and have decent framing and everything. And it's $350. That's sort of the biggest thing for me. In decent lighting, this thing should be amazing. It's just not going to work particularly well in low lighting. For $350 though, that'd be tempting to kind of try that out at some point. Ricoh also announced a new Ricoh also announced a new action cam. It's the WG-M2. It can do 4K video, and it has a massively wide 204-degree field of view, but it looks super tiny. I used to have a little action camera called the Mobius, and it kind of looks like that, maybe just a little bit bigger. Has a 1.5-inch LCD on top of it. Looked kind of interesting, and it's coming in at $300. The entry point for getting into 4K content is going down like a rock. So if you haven't thought about moving to 4K yet, you may want to consider it. Now we talk science, because you know I love science. Boston Dynamics, the people behind all of the robotic stuff that you end up seeing, the robotic dog and everything you've seen in the videos, they announced the next-gen Atlas robots. These are bipedal robot, they stand up, they have arms and everything. They have built-in obstacle avoidance, which can help them go up and down hills and navigate around objects and stuff, but they can also pick up objects. So in the animation that I saw of it, it actually shows the bot picking up a box and a guy smacking the box out of its hand with a hockey stick and then shoving it away. All of the sites that I've seen talking about this are joking about how this is how you start the robot uprising. They showed the animated image of the original Boston Dynamics dogs getting pushed around with sticks and getting kicked and everything, and then this new Atlas robot getting pushed around with sticks, and it's like, you want the Skynet robot revolution? Because that's how you start the Skynet robot revolution. Moving along. I cannot remember where this was, I didn't write it down, I think it's in France. The bust of Nefertiti is in a museum, and it is closely guarded. Like, you cannot take photos of it, no videos, no 3D scans or anything. The scans they have of it are not publicly available. So a couple of artists went in there with Microsoft Kinect hidden under their jackets, under their scarves, and just sort of casually walked around and occasionally opened their coats, taking 3D scans of the Nefertiti bust. They released the STL file, the 3D printable file of it. It's public domain, it's a torrent file, you'd have to actually download it. I don't think I really would want to download it on my own computer because I'd be willing to bet there's going to be people coming after the people that torrent that one. But I looked it up and it is a 100 megabyte file, but like I said, I did not download it. Moving right along to some interesting Wi-Fi related news. Researchers have come out and announced that they have come up with super efficient Wi-Fi. It is 10,000 times more power efficient than our current Wi-Fi setups by being partially passive, meaning that it mainly just sits there and intercepts radio waves and then reflects them, and when it's reflecting them, it puts its own stuff in there along with it, which sounds horribly insecure as far as I'm concerned, but maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. From what I read about it, it's supposedly kind of similar to the way that RFID works, and I don't know a whole lot about that either, so I'll just leave it at that. There is the potential for lower power Wi-Fi devices in the future. Sounds cool. And Megan Woolerton from CNET made her way over to the UL testing laboratories, I think she said in Indiana, where they were showing off the way that they test hoverboards. And from the way they talk, this is kind of the way that they test all things, but the main thing they're kind of testing there with the hoverboards is how to make them explode. Which ones are safe and what makes them safe and what limits you can put on them. It's really just a video you ought to check out because they show all of the stress testing they do on these hoverboards, we'll say in air quotes. I thought it was just sort of a fun video. And now wrapping things up with device news. Oppo's been making news for years by unveiling faster and faster charging capabilities. This year at Mobile World Congress, they unveiled what they're calling Super VOOC, or Super VOOC, where you can charge a 2,500 milliamp hour device in just 15 minutes. And this will work over micro USB or USB Type-C. They had the same kind of thing with their original VOOC, but it wasn't 15 minutes. It was something, I don't remember exactly how long it was, but 15 minutes to get 2,500 milliamp hours, that's actually faster than Qualcomm Quick Charge 3. And it makes me curious if that's really going to have a massive impact on the battery life. Still, if it's anything like they did in the Oppo Find 7, they'll probably have a removable battery and it'll probably be relatively inexpensive to replace. So if they can get their software worked out, because that's the biggest issue I had with Oppo devices, I would definitely love to try out one of their devices with this Super VOOC built in. Sony unveiled at Mobile World Congress what they're calling Ear, wonderful name there. It's a little Bluetooth, I guess it's Bluetooth, earbud you stick in your ear, but instead of being a Bluetooth earbud, it reads your notifications off to you. So you can tell you the weather, it can tell you navigation, text messages, phone calls, emails, all those sorts of things. The biggest problem with it is it lasts for 3.5 hours. So if you're on a longer road trip or you're expecting to use it at your desk all day or something, it ain't gonna last all day. Now that said, it does come with a little pocket carrying case that's also a travel charger, and you can supposedly charge it up 3 times using that charger before you have to charge the charger. I didn't see anything in the article about pricing on that, but it sounds interesting. I'd like to try something like that out. Sony, if you're out there, yeah. HP unveiled the Elite X3 phone, sort of. It's a Windows 10 phone, and it has some ridiculously massive specs. And it has all of this because it's not just a phone. When you plug it into a dock, it becomes a desktop. When you plug it into a laptop dock, it becomes a laptop. But the little laptop accessory is basically dead aside from that. So it kind of sounds like, what was it? The Motorola Atrix, because there was like an Atrix that had a lap dock and you just plugged it in and there's your whole laptop, which, going back to the Atrix there, makes me wonder about long-term support. Is this something that they're going to just throw out there and then immediately abandon the next time a Windows update comes out? Or is this something that's going to be available and usable long term. Again, I didn't see anything about pricing on that, but I'd be interested to check that out. A little bit of VR news. The HTC Vive, they've actually said that it's coming out in April now. It's going to be available for $799, so a little bit more expensive than I like. But the pre-orders for it are going to be available on February 29th, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern, so if you're interested in picking one of those up, you might want to get in line. LG announced a couple of really interesting device accessories. They announced new devices, obviously. I talked about all this stuff at length in the XDA video. You should go check that out. There'll be a link down below. But the accessories they announced were interesting too. They announced a robotic ball that's essentially a pet cam. It's a smart security camera. You can control it remotely. Keep an eye on your pets to make sure you lock the front door, to make sure you turn the oven off if you can see it from the little ball. Kind of like BB-8 without the head. I've heard mixed opinions of it so far, but I thought it was cute and I thought it was interesting. They also unveiled a VR headset for the LG G5, but it looks like it's super tiny and I think it actually plugs in externally. So if I do end up with my hands on the LG G5, I may look into that as well. I don't know, I'm a little inundated with VR headsets at the moment. And anyway, the last thing to talk about, speaking of kind of like VR headsets, Epson has rolled out multiple head-mounted displays over the last few years. This one being the last one, the Epson BT200. I did a review of this a while back. I think I did that review on XDA if you want to check that out. But they announced the BT300. It's thinner, it's 20% lighter, but it's still really big and probably really heavy. But the projectors in it now use OLED, so it should be a little bit easier on the eyes, a little bit more transparent, but it comes running Android 5.1, which... ouch. That's actually one of the biggest problems I had with the BT200 was that it came running a very old version of Android when it was released, and they never updated it at all. So if I turn this on right now and tried to update it, it would just say no. I think it was running 4.2. So this one will most likely be on 5.1 forever. That seems to be sort of their way of doing things. They put out a new headset. It's really cool. It's really interesting. But then they immediately abandon it and move on to the next big thing. I actually can't remember reading the pricing or availability or anything in the article, but I'll have links to everything that I've talked about down in the description. So make sure to check all that out. But that's going to be about all for this video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for supporting this series. Remember to leave a thumbs up below the video if you like this video and subscribe if you want to receive more videos from me when they become available. We'll see you again next time. In front of me, this looks an awful lot like a camcorder that I used to own from Canon. I used to have several different ones actually, the HF M40, the HFG, several over the course of the years. The one downside